Good morning, and thank you guys for being up here with us. Tommy, I'm going to start with you. So you guys, you lead the sales division for Prosource, and you guys have been very, very successful selling paper cut and solutions. So when you, from a sales leadership, how do you get your reps engaged in selling solutions, and what's the approach that Prosource has taken?
So when we started selling paper cut, we had this under our document automation tool, and it did not work. So we moved it back under our sales division for our office equipment. And we put a compensation plan that would be attractive to our sales team, because ultimately that's what's going to get the attention of our account management team and drive the activity, the needed activity. Yesterday, I think it was Josh that talked about support and making sure that sales reps are not going to sell anything if they don't feel like your organization is going to support them. So in the beginning, we used ACDI support, and it was fantastic. But we've invested in our professional development of our help desk engineers, and currently we have 5 certified paper cut engineers. So we do all our own installations, we do all our own support, and our sales team knew that we go by that one throat to choke mentality. So our customers are going to call Prosource, no matter if it's a hardware issue or a software issue, and avoids the confusion with the customer. From that, over the last 8 to 10 years, with the help of you, Mark, and Richard Boyle, continuous training, continuous top of mind, it has led us to what we feel is a pretty good position, yet there's a lot of opportunities still out there for us to get.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so Tom, when you said compensation, so are your reps actually compensated on solutions, or is it just part of the hardware deal?
So paper cut is, we attach that to the hardware, but paper cut can also be a standalone, and we will compensate them for that and any renewals that occur.
Awesome. All right, young man, Mr. Carson, you said third generation. Your company's been around since 1970. Why are you excited to be part of this industry and third generation in this industry?
So to preface that, I had no idea what my dad did for a living. Because he didn't talk about work, so I was fortunate enough to...
With me, though.
With you. His biggest son, right? So for me, out of college, our delivery driver just had a medical emergency. He couldn't work anymore, so he was like, hey, come drive a truck for us, we need help. And I fell in love with what I saw as an untapped potential in our market and in the industry, which was not just selling the box, but selling the professional services, the solutions, the workflows, and in that, I kind of went to him and I was like, hey, I think this is something that we're missing as a service-based company. We're missing out on all this extra service revenue, and we have a great team, we have a great brand. We wouldn't be around for 53 years if our name didn't mean something in our market. And so I was like, hey, what do you think about this? And then I was introduced to all of our partners with Sharpen, Lexmark, ACDI, and just kind of started building that team and kind of that book of business with everybody.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. Austin, so when we talk about success in the industry and selling solutions, there's probably, you guys are top 5 in my book, top 3 in my book of being successful in selling solutions. And I know over the last couple of years, you've really taken a hard look at the approach of how to sell solutions in your dealership. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, so to Tom's point of doing your own professional services, we're big advocates of that. And with that, you learn a lot of things. So you learn where a sweet spot is, and you learn what you're not good at. And I think in the last probably 18 months, and then continually, we continue to reevaluate where we are good. And one of the biggest things we've learned is we're much better upstream, mid-market and above. And I think we excel in enterprise specifically. And so we are this might be news to ACDI, but we're going to convert our lower end stuff back to your professional services more than likely, with a couple other partners as well, just because the ROI on our very expensive engineering team, hours is not good at a certain level, right? So scaling up, it's a better conversation. It's probably not unique amongst this room, but we have really 4 areas of focus within the company. So print's one of them, AV's one of them, managed IT services, and then enterprise content services. 3 of those 4 are very heavily focused on mid-market and above, and managed IT is more mid-market and below for us right now. The conversation, as everyone's aware, with a 3-lawyer law firm versus a Fortune 1000 company, it doesn't translate, right? So I can't ask my sales rep force to go have a conversation with an enterprise customer and then go walk into a mom and pop's, whatever, doesn't matter. And so we're gonna make a bit of a split there, and focus on what we're best at, which is mid-market enterprise, and I hope that our customers feel like that's paying dividends for them.
So to be clear, you're not walking away from the smaller business, right? You still want your reps out there selling them.
Yes, and likely that quota is going to fall under managed services eventually, right? Because they're already calling on them, and frankly, if we're winning that business, then we're just going to buy from ourselves at that point. So that makes a lot more sense. And again, I can spend engineering time that we pay lots and lots of money for on the most valuable hours.
Awesome. So, Tawnya, Tom mentioned selling software standalone for PaperCut. You know, a lot of questions are always buzzing through the room. You know, does the software always have to be attached to hardware for a lease, or is there opportunities for software-only type leases?
I would say the answer is there's always possibilities. A lot of times we see software associated with hardware, but we can do software-only leases if that's what your customer wants. The thing that I like to think about is when you guys are going to market with a solution, what is it that everybody needs and what's the goal of everybody? And so when I think of the customer or the end user, the one that's going to be using it, their main goal is to have everything on one invoice. And so whether that software is going to be financed as part of it, or whether that software is maybe a subscription based, where it's just a pass through to you every month. If there's project costs to get it installed, maybe that's financed. I mean, the end user, all they really care about is that they get one invoice at the end. And so that's one of the things that I think GreatAmerica is really good at, is being able to consolidate all your products, services, you know, professional services, subscriptions, whatever, onto that single invoice. So I would just encourage you, when you're talking to whoever your finance company is, try to understand what is the goal that you're trying to achieve and what's the goal of your end customer, and then how can you work together to get that done.
Yes. So that
That
kind
kind
of
of leads into a question, Carson, I have for you, right? She's talking about adding that lease all into one. It's that value, it's that approach. So on your website, you guys talk about being a services first company, and which helps you guys keep ahead of the competition. What does service first mean to you?
Yeah, so, I mean, it is our motto, service carved in stone. And I always look at it as the only thing that makes what we do different is we have an outbound sales and an outbound service team collectively as an industry. And so with that, the only thing that's going to make me different than my competitor is my service, right? And we started as a typewriter repair company. So service is, it's in our blood, it's what we do. And I look at when we pick up vendors or we look at solutions, leasing companies, I don't want just a vendor. I need a partner. I need somebody who has service to support me, because the customer doesn't know anybody but your face, right? If you tell them, you know, GreatAmerica, they're going, okay, it's the, you know, leasing company you gave me to use. And so when we go to, you know, to customers and say, hey, we think this is a great solution for you, PaperCut and this and this and this, the first thing to do is, does it work? And you're like, yeah, it works. And I'm like, can you support it? Of course I can support it. think for us, it took a little bit of a learning curve with our sales staff because they didn't have that support team previously until I got there. And so to show them that not only was I there to help, promote this business and be kind of like a service to the sales team, but that ACDI, I can call Jeff anytime and say, hey dude, I need this, and this, or what do you think about this? And he's always going to pick up. Same thing with GreatAmerica, Becky's great. I mean, it's just the service team that you can get out of a lot of vendors makes you different. And I think that's kind of how we've pitched ourselves in our market, is being different.
Tommy, let me throw this over to you, right? When it comes to getting, what Carson said is getting the sales team comfortable, right? How do you guys get your team comfortable in selling solutions today? And then what motivates them from a compensation package that says, I want to sell something more than just hardware?
So if we go back, our relationship with ACDI and PaperCut is probably 8-9 years now. Before that, we were utilizing that for track. And PaperCut came to us and we started testing it, understanding what the values of it are. And in the beginning, we were including PaperCut as an option, particularly in our education marketplace. We were offering it as an alternative to our RFP responses. And what happened was we had some of our senior account managers that were handling some of our larger school districts, particularly in the K through 12 and higher education, that were winning deals and including PaperCut. Started getting the attention of the rest of the sales force as to taking a $200,000 hardware deal and now making it a $250,000 hardware and software deal. Increasing the commissions, increasing the board credits, and it was being done by the senior team that has probably garnered the most respect within our sales bullpen. Then all of a sudden you start having your other reps start going up to your senior reps and saying, help me understand what's going on here, help me understand how do I get this involved with my customer base. And again, I mentioned the continuous training that we've done. Rich O'Boyle, I know I mentioned his name several times now, but he has continuously come into our offices and brought value in the training aspect, understanding what PaperCut is and what it isn't, how it can be added. Now, fast forward to today, you mentioned it, up to this point in time, we've included most of our PaperCut in the transactional of hardware. And you're out there doing an account review 2 years into a 5-year lease, and you're talking PaperCut, and now they say, let's do it, how do we get it financed? So we've been talking about that internally. Do we want to finance that internally at Prosource? Do we want to take it to a leasing company? I'll throw it out there, the subscription model of PaperCut MF, when's it coming, so that we can just say, we can just add this to your service invoice, keep it at one invoice, just add it as a line item. So again, with issues comes opportunities, and those opportunities have been continued. One of the things that's made me so impressed with ACDI and PaperCut is the continuation of the reinvestment in the product and the new releases of what's coming out and what they're able to do for us on a continuous basis. So looking forward to the future. And again, it's compensation helped drive some of that activity. But now what we're also seeing is some of the RFPs, it's now a requirement of having a print management software, and the hardware is almost an afterthought. Again, I think the future is bright, although you hear so many other things about our industry, our future is very bright.
Printing's going away, does it not?
What'd you say?
I said printing's going away, guys didn't know that.
Right, no, you're right.
I've been told that since I started in this industry 15 years ago.
I need about 8 more years.
What year was only 8 times? All right, anyway, when was the term paperless office coined? Does anybody know? 1979. 1979 was the first time we heard about the paperless office, right? So I don't think it's coming. It's coming, You know, hopefully you'll get here. Austin, let me ask you a question. You know, and I come from the tech world, right? And always was paired up with reps about making them feel comfortable, and that's kind of what Tom said. When you're looking at hiring new tech people or whatever, what would you recommend to the group and how they should look at building a solutions team like you guys have?
Ask them how good they Google.
What's that?
It's the very first thing I ask anyone that I interview for any job we ever have, is how proficiently can you Google? Because I don't like answering stupid questions. And I feel like Google, especially with everyone's AI tie-ins these days, Google or whatever your favorite search engine is, how proficiently can you Google? I feel like that's a very real question, and I feel like if my 8-year-old can figure something out faster than someone I'm interviewing, it's probably not gonna work for me. Because every one of our jobs has just little things that pop up, right, that someone else has probably run into. I flipped the formatter board and a hard drive in my machine at home last weekend. Guess what? Because I Googled it, and there's a YouTube video on how to do it, right? So that's the world we live in now. That is my very first question. Once we get over that hump, I prefer people, you know, that have a technology background. So that's my background. I have an odd family history. Said 3rd generation. So my dad worked for Xerox for most of the 80s and then bought a Ricoh dealership and sold it to Icon in 95 because printing was going away. That's why I think it's a very funny joke. But we're still here. He went from there to Cisco Systems and now Presidio. So I still have a very close tie to IT industry, and that's how I myself sell and, you know, approach things. We all have so much technology in our daily life that I really feel like you've got to sift through how people use that. If someone is nothing in social media, if that's their use of technology on a daily basis, that's not really the person for me. If they geek out a little bit and do other stuff, you know, those fall in a category that I care about more. And then it kind of comes to everyone has their own training mechanism, I think. We have a very, very, very immersive program depending on what your role is within the company. I wish Denny was here, my solutions architecture manager. I could throw some of that to him, right? He's a very, very, very technical training, and then I kind of bring in some sales side stuff for a lot of our folks to come on board. So it's driven by the personnel, but you got to get over the Google first.
It's funny that you say that because I've been to several AI conferences recently because everybody's talking AI, right? And one of the new training / jobs that they think are going to be created are prompt creators. And it's basically how well can you Google? And that is hilarious because people can't. Like it's amazing if someone were to ask, you know, 2 different people a question, the responses you get truly matter based on the prompt you use. And with AI coming, it's going to become even more important. So
You can go to letmehelpyougoogle.com and Google it for someone and then show them how to Google it.
oh my God,
Step by
I'm totally
step.
stealing that.
Yeah, it's great.
No, that's awesome. That, you know, and it goes back to that ChatGPT questions, right? Continuing to probe, and that's something we've all had to learn, whether you're in sales or technical. Continue to ask those questions and continue to probe, right? So that's some great feedback. Let me ask anybody on the panel here. You know, one of the things Tom, because kind of Tom hit on it, talking about subscription. You know, traditionally in our world, it's perpetual-based software, and you're tying it to a 3-year, 5-year, 1-year lease or something like that. But now we're all, because of the Microsoft, the Adobes of the world, the Google subscription is everywhere, Netflix and stuff. Do we think subscription for software has a big play in our industry, whether it's print management, whether it's digital transformation with products like ScanShare and things? Are you guys heading down that path, and do you see viability for a service line for subscription?
So our document automation utilizes a lot of Kofax Homebase, and I think it was 2 years ago, Homebase went to a complete subscription. Year over year, you compare revenues, and it hurt for the first couple of years for that revenue because now you're recognizing monthly subscription revenue versus capturing all the revenue up front. And that also then generates another issue or question of how are you going to compensate the reps when you're receiving a monthly subscription versus all the hardware up front. So I do believe that ultimately everything will be going to a subscription series. particularly in software, but it's that monthly reoccurring revenue that we're all seeking and desiring. Again, it's going to create some new challenges, but with every challenge, again, comes opportunities. It also will allow having the different conversations of just adding on, how many people have subscriptions, and what happens after you have the subscription. For $4.99 more, you get this. For $2.99 more, you get this. So once you have the subscription in place, then it's just an add-on feature, and I think we do really good at adding on additional values and services and products to that monthly reoccurring revenue. So ultimately, I think it'll go that way. When and how quickly, yet to be determined, I guess.
That's awesome.
I would also like to just comment on that. In your personal lives, how many subscriptions do you have that you forget you have, and that becomes your new baseline? And so you don't even really think about what you're spending on that. And so I'm not suggesting that you're not disclosing information to your customers, but when it's all on that one invoice, whatever that new invoice total is, that's your new baseline. So they're not necessarily picking that apart. The other thing I would say is there are even more reasons on the subscription model to be thinking about how to diversify and what additional products and services can you be offering. If you're packaging it all on that one invoice to the end user and you're just kind of adding the line items like you suggested, I think it becomes a very viable sales model. Figuring out the comp is obviously important because that's going to motivate your sales team to be successful with it, but I think that implementation is actually pretty straightforward. The other thing I would just say is when you're talking with whoever's doing your billing, in the case of GreatAmerica, we would be doing your billing for you. How are you getting that data to us? How are we ensuring that that data is representing you? I can tell you at GreatAmerica, we think of ourselves actually as an extension to your team. In many cases, we're private labeling those invoices. They don't know who GreatAmerica is. They just know Stone's office. And so it is our goal in life to represent ourselves in a way that you would want us to represent you. And so just making sure that data accuracy is at the forefront. There's no way to upset a customer more than to screw up the pricing. And you lose credibility, and that's the last thing we would want to do. So ensuring there's data accuracy, validations, those things when we go to get that data to put on your invoice is key.
I was going to say that's the biggest challenge I think right now, probably collectively, is that the e-automates of the world are not made for that in a lot of cases. Like that's our biggest struggle with subscription-based stuff is reconciling it. When a customer wants to add a license, delete a license, add a line, delete a line, all that type of stuff, the management aspect of it is atrocious. Right.
Okay, so I have a little plug here. We have an integration, we call it PTA, Pass-Through Automation. What happens is we go into your eAutomate instance, we grab your invoicing as long as the bill to or the customer number is GreatAmerica. If it is a line item charge, like you're talking about, a variable charge, could be managed services, could be a subscription, could be anything, could be storage. We will then grab that charge and put it on the invoice. So you don't have to worry about how do I get that charge to us. And so handling those variable payments in an automated manner that you know is accurate because it's a dollar for dollar match is huge. And hopefully our goal is to really ease your burden of billing, not only the billing aspect, but also the collection. We're your accounts receivable, we're your collector, and people pay it when there's someone calling them.
I think I'm more talking about the upfront, like customer wants to add something. How does that flow through us every time they want to add one of X, right? That's one of our bigger challenges is everyone's moving towards a subscription model, but historical industry tools like Rihanna, like whatever, are not as ready as they could be at the moment.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a challenge for all of us. I know that, us working with the Lubricant team, Gainshare team, looking at subscription models, it's like, all right, are we building arrears? We've done it with fleet management in the past. We found that way to do that, but how do we do it moving forward with print management, with document transfer information? It's going to be interesting to see how we do it. So with that, let's open it up. What kind of questions you guys might have? And by the way, thank you all for being up here. Do you have any questions or thoughts from the field or anything you guys want to throw out at this group that might get provoking or whatever? Oh, look at that, it's quiet now. Oh, Les, go ahead.
Hey, so I'd like to ask the panel, there's two KPIs that I've been starting to track, and I want to just see if you're tracking this or it's something. I'm going down the wrong path. Number one, percentage of revenue of hardware versus solutions, and if you see a trend there. And then number two, and that is revenue per employee. And the final piece is, are you seeing a correlation?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so, we just started tracking like solutions versus hardware revenue, last year. I think you'd be crazy not to, because you're gonna see the trend turn. Like you said, everybody says the industry's dying, right? It's not dying, it's changing. COVID helped expedite that change a little bit. I tell my salespeople that all the time. I'm like, you can't just sell a box anymore because the boxes are all the same. I mean, minor differences, but a box is a box. And so on that, we internally are seeing a correlation with the rep who's selling the most hardware is also selling the most solutions, because he understands that, okay, I might have been able to get, 2 A3 boxes here. Now I'm down to an A3 and a couple printers. But if I throw a paper cut or a fax solution or something on top of that, I'm actually making more money in the long run with that customer. And you're making yourself sticky, because if it's a solution that not every manufacturer can provide, what are they going to do, rip out your fax solution and start all over again? That's like the last thing anybody wants to do is deal with faxing.
I've tracked that for about 5 years, and it's every dollar in solutions, about 9 in hardware and service. That's what I've been tracking. That's held pretty much at that for 5-ish years.
You look at employee for revenue per employee.
Kinda, maybe. I mean,
The question, sorry guys, the question was, is he looking at revenue per employee when they start looking at solutions?
So we have about 130 reps, and that probably 25% of that changes frequently, so it's kind of tough. We split them up into a couple different categories, right? Legacy, kind of midterm, and then the newbies. So it's not necessarily something that's been great for us to measure.
So we also track that, but what we find is that your adopters are gonna take on our managed print services, our solutions, our managed network services, our net new business opportunities. I don't know that we've tracked it by dollars of, per revenue, how much hardware, how much, because we lump it all together. Probably something that we'll start looking at though. And, but I think, again, your most successful sales team members are gonna adopt all your offerings. Get yourself sticky in the accounts, and again, lead to other opportunities and selling upstream in that same account.
Very good. Anything else?
Right here.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So you guys mentioned a couple of challenges with some of the newer subscription stuff. I'm just if you're willing to just maybe share some of your solutions, but in particular, paying commissions, right, on subscriptions. And then also on those kind of line item things like, okay, we sell e-fax solution, we're selling you 5,000 pages a month. That's all budgeted, and then we're getting an invoice for $1.50 because you went over this month, the next month it's 75 cents. How do you guys address some of those issues?
I'm happy to tell how ours is. So let's use faxing. We're an ex-medias provider. We have, I don't know, X number of customers in there. So the way that our reps are compensated for that is they get 1 month's billing. So let's say we have a base. Let's say we're charging $1,000 for a base. They get $1,000 for that base. They do not get paid on overages, and then they get paid annually. We basically look at it as an annual subscription. Even if the customer signs up for 60 months, we pay them annually on that.
Your arrears?
Yes.
Okay. And then how do you handle this from an accounting perspective when you get those overage bills?
Bill it, bill a base like a copier base, and bill an overage like a copier overage. I mean, that's really it. You have to make sure you're very concise with your meters, because if that gets messed up, you're hosed forever. And that has happened. It actually, funny enough, now switched to our meters. So that used to be under the solutions group to kind of maintain that and get it to insurance. It now falls under meters.
Anybody else? No? Where's Dave Farrell? Dave, what do you always ask everybody? I'll ask for Dave. Hey, you guys ever track attachment rates on your devices, or is there ever a plan to track attachment rates for solutions?
You're welcome, Dave.
Yeah.
Ours is about 45%.
Okay.
Ours is not at 45%. We are tracking it, and, again, our number one industry vertical is education, and we are probably at nearly 80 to 85% attachment in that vertical, which makes sense. Medical is probably our second one, and nonprofit is probably our third highest attachment. And again, it's selling the value and taking those return on investments and putting the money back into their missions. So, but our attachment rate is nowhere near where we would like it to be, or I think I'll use the goal of 45% for now. Thanks, Austin.
Yeah, great, sorry, appreciate it.
All right, now Dave does want to speak.
Austin, question for you. That first of all, that's an impressive attachment. Is your average selling price higher for the attached software, and are your win rates higher, renewal rates higher when software is attached?
Always.
Yes, always to both. Always.
So the question, if you guys didn't hear it over the room that Dave asked is, what is your renewal rates when you have software attached to it and your average sale cost? So it's always going up, right? And it's
Correct.
yes. Yeah. And Carson, you said that same thing, right? When you guys have software attached.
Yeah, if I feel like this, the blanket statement, it's not always true, but if you don't win with the attachment, I don't think you did a good job showing the value of that software that you put on the device. Because the goal of that was to make the customer's life easier, their business better. And if you lost that, you'll lose occasion just because somebody did a better job selling the price over the value, but 98% of the time, you're gonna win that back. You're just gonna keep adding more to that account, so.
Okay, then I got a really question. So we always talk about selling to your base, right? And you said if you don't win with it at first, you have to show the value and stuff like that. Do you guys have a team that might go in, or your reps incented, your hardware reps incented to go in and sell solutions after the fact? A year into a contract, 3 years into a contract, try to renew or add some sort of software on top of it? Is that something you guys practice?
Yes, absolutely. We want deep and wide in every single customer. We actually get a significant amount of new business by just solutions. And then it turns into, they're 2 years into a 5-year lease, and we sell PaperCut on top of someone who has hardware in there, and then we flip the gear, down the road. We do, that's probably a fourth of our business, I would say.
I'm saying for you guys, do you guys have, is it the same team, or do you have different teams that might go in and sell?
So recently, we have added an additional support where we have a pre-sale support person specifically for, it's for hardware-centric solutions that we put PaperCut under. He is incented. He's a overlay, but he also carries a quota of different licenses that must be met, different additional revenues at time of sale, add-on revenues after the sale. So he's incented, the sales reps are also incented. As I mentioned earlier, one of the challenges are how do you finance 3 years remaining on a 5-year lease by putting PaperCut into it? Do you co-term it? Do you put $1 out lease on it? So we've done it. There's, again, it's not as clean, I'll say. I think the subscription model will clean a lot of that up from the customer standpoint. Then it's just a matter of how you compensate the sales rep to go forward with that.
Yeah, so we just started last year driving. We pay our reps really, really well through net new. And it started with completely new business, and then we looked at, okay, well, we have all these solutions we offer. If you could just give me a net new placement, whether it's an old customer or not, I think they get, and I could be wrong, I think it's 50% of that total. So we see the value, all of us up here, all of us in this room see the value of getting ourselves wider and deeper into the account. It's just incentivizing the sales reps to do the right thing. And we've even gone to the point now, when we have customers who have large color overages, it's an immediate flag to that sales rep to say, hey, you might want to look at a print solution for them because they're freaking out about a $1,200 invoice of overages just in color. So you can be the hero. And we've worked with a few where I'll like, oh yeah, I'll waive the invoice if you get this, $10,000 solution. Sure, I'll forego the service revenue on that one account. But I think it's setting up the processes in place that's the hardest thing for a lot of people. But once you get this in place and you start incentivizing the right people, it kind of starts to flow pretty easily.
Awesome. Any other questions? Oh, Michael.
Yeah, sorry, thanks. Quick question, do all of you belong to a peer group? And do you find, and you know, they call it Tom Johnson model or whatever, are you still applying those KPIs to the business that you're creating today? Because it sounds like you guys are way ahead of the peer group.
I know that Prosource utilizes the Johnson model. I myself am not involved in that to the degree that's probably done with our CFO and our owner and president. I hear about how we compare to the model every month when we do our financial reviews. But in relationship to this, you know, there's challenges of how the model takes on, you know, copier dealerships with solutions, copier dealerships with managed network services. So again, we do compare ourselves to the different models and peer groups, but at the end of the day, we have to keep it internal as well in how we want to drive our business.
Said differently, that model doesn't do solutions very well. And I saw you dancing over there, right?
Exact same Tom's
Yeah.
answer. I mean, we do a lot of modeling off of IT services companies versus older copier company models, especially for the solution stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's something we all have to look at and change to where it's going in the future, right? I mean, it's you said it, right? The box where we gotta go. We have to change yourself into a different company and look toward the future, continue to make solutions work, however that works in your area.
I hesitated to ask, I didn't Google it.
Oh, you're all right.
All by yourself.
We have two questions. One is, you guys have a house load on your solutions, and also how do you pay your sales reps? Is it based on margin or is it based on revenue?
Yes, we do have a PAC, a small PAC. So my engineering team isn't free, and we have 33 offices, I think. And so, you know, there's travel. So Denny was here earlier, and he had to go to our Colorado office because his meeting's in this afternoon, right? So that costs money. Someone's got to pay for that. So we do PAC a little bit. It's not very much. It's inconsequential in the scheme of things. What was your second question? How we pay? How we call it?
Revenue or margin? Do you pay revenue?
Margin. Same sucker.
Both, but at a much higher rate on the margin.
Yeah, we do have accelerators, so they have tiered comp plans if they have book leasing rates, and if it's got new, and if it has solutions, and if it services a book, you know, all those types of things, they get point bumps all the way up.
Carson, same?
Yeah, same. And obviously driving for the longer term too, right? So you want 60 months, really incentivize for a longer commitment from this.
And that subscription or perpetual, you'll still put a subscription on a 60-month lease and just let it go, get it all paid for up front.
Yeah, so like we sell Etherfax as our fax solution, so who asked the question about, I feel your pain because GoldFax charges by the page, EtherFax doesn't do Messmer, so we sell just a flat rate to every customer. But I incentivize our reps to, one, hold margin. I don't want you going in and selling it bare bones. And two, if you can get 60 months, I'll pay you up, because that's 5 years where I'm gonna be in that account. That's most likely another 5 years we're gonna be in that account whenever it moves too. And so I think, yeah, that's more, you have to pay for term and margin, right?
Does anybody else use EtherFax? Got a few people in the room. By the way, Nasir's back there. Nasir's development team will have an EtherFax connector into PaperCut before the end of the year that you guys will be able to utilize. So plug out to Nasir and his team. They're working on that right now, so we're excited about that. All right, great questions. Anybody else? Yes,
I've got 2 questions.
2 questions. I'll repeat them. Go ahead.
First question, we're all copier companies, if I can say that.
Yeah.
We started as a copier box, but it's not. How did you overcome selling solutions from a team that was trained, focused on speeds and feeds, and transition them into selling software solutions? Every year, I'm sure that was challenging. How do you overcome that? Did you recruit new teams?
I fired them.
Yeah, I was going to say, this question is, how long did it take you to fire your people, to hire new solution salespeople?
So I think Tom said it earlier, when we'll call them legacy, tenure, whatever you want to call them, when those people have success, everyone else does it, or they leave, right? I mean, that's really the answer is, you had a couple of people that were successful, and I was fortunate enough to be one of those when I started in the industry, and it was with Nuance product, I think, and it was just, looking back, just atrociously terrible to install. But that was kind of our first, that was probably 15 years ago, 14 years ago. That was our first inroads, and we made a lot of money, and A, money talks, but then B, you realize that no one else was talking about that. They were talking about, monocomponent toner versus something else that I never learned because I don't care. Xbox. I really think that's what it comes down to ultimately is you have a couple successes and then you can stoke that fire and you're either in or you're out.
Second question. First, go ahead.
I go. What was your repeat part of that?
He said, how long did it take you to fire your sales staff and hire new solution people? So in other words, how do you move from a hardware to a
hardware to
software?
Every Monday morning, I beat my head against my desk for an hour after our sales meeting. But I think it's hard, right? Because if you have a great culture in your company, your tenure is really high, you have good sales people, but they're selling the 80s, 90s, 2000 model of speeds and feeds. And like Austin said, it's the few successes you get that kind of, when you're cutting your teeth, they start to see the value. But I think the big push is getting the younger people in the sales roles that see the value, that actually use technology on a daily basis. We had a sales rep that just retired, but he didn't know how to restart his computer. If his Outlook closed, he had to call me to open it back up. And I was like, there's no way this guy's gonna sell me.
So the only other thing I would say to that is, I also believe it's part of our responsibility to keep it top of mind. Solutions has to be top of mind to our sales team, has to be that continuous training. If you want to call them the legacy account managers, they came into this industry and they learned how to sell copiers. And they were trained on how to do that. So it's the same responsibility. We have to train our account management team on how to sell solutions. And it has to remain top of mind. It has to be something that you're talking about every day, every week.
It's the only way.
I was just gonna add, one of the things that got a super highlight in my notebook yesterday that Anthony Ski had said is salespeople won't talk about things that they're not comfortable and understand. And I'm not a dealer, so I don't know their specific, but I can tell you from the finance side, it's the same thing. Nobody wants to talk about something that they might be asked a question they're uncomfortable or don't know the answer to. And so the step number one is get them comfortable and not just, I understand how to spell it, I know what it costs, actually make them feel like they understand it enough that they are either comfortable answering the questions or deferring the questions. Because I think without having the confidence of saying, you know, I don't know that, but I'm gonna call, you know, my expert Carson in, that's a level of maturity. So getting your reps to that level, I think, is almost a have to do.
We make everyone use it. We use all of our offices, all of our products. So if you're not, then you're never gonna figure it out, right? If you have to use it, if you want to print your proposal, you have to go flash your badge, guess what? You figure out how to do it pretty quick.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, don't forget that question too, because, you know, I'll pick on my buddy Tawnya, right? You know, he's not the youngest guy on the stage, we all know that, we still love it, right? But he took that approach years ago. He saw what the revenue and things were gonna be with software, right? And you came to us and said, help us figure it out. Doesn't necessarily just be young, it's just having that initiative and wanting to be different and wanting to do something special for your team. So as a leader, from the top down, Tom got it, right? Austin got it, and that's what you guys have to do. You have to believe in it, and then you have to spend that time with your people to educate them and be there in the trenches. I mean, you know, I got a call from Tom last week or something. He was at school. I mean, he's on an install with his team in paper cut, and it's my buddy they're installing on, and he's there, but he's there with them to show, lead by example, and I think that's how it leads to your success too.
Well, and again, as I said, our relationship with ACDI and PaperCut started 8-9 years ago, and you know, we just as we all had choices in what vendors we're going to support, and ACDI stood behind us and with us, for us, in the beginning, those first couple of years where I'm embarrassed to tell you how much we sold that first year. It was not good, and I'm wondering why they keep coming into our office trying to continuously educate us, because I probably would not have continued to come into our offices. But here we are 8-9 years later, and it's a substantial aspect of our business. And again, we have the choice of what print management software we're going to sell, and we absolutely will choose ACDI every day of the week.
Thank you, brother. Last question.
How much you owe me?
Right, that's me, I pay you all the time.
Another bottle?
So, we don't talk about revenue, we don't talk about, you know, paper less, I call it using less paper, not paper less, but less paper. So with that, we're seeing, you know, print or copy count going down. It's a trend, slowly going down, and scan count going up. Has anybody here from the panel figured out how to charge for scanning, or anybody in the room?
Yeah, so
And
that,
if you have, what are the challenges?
the question is, right, we're seeing print head downward, scan head upward, right? I remember from being in the hardware space with Lexmark years ago, you know, we saw that going up. Our scanners weren't the most efficient ADFs and stuff, and people were sending thousands of pages through there, and there was more service apartments on the scanners happening than there were on the print, but nobody was charging for it. So have you guys thought about that? Or do you have something built into service today that says, you know, they're scanning, but they're putting more digital transformation through that ADF or through your copiers than they are actually pages output, and can you recoup that revenue? No.
Currently today, we're not charging for scanning. Love having the conversations with my service manager of how PaperCut is increasing the decline in print, which is, again, it's an enjoyable conversation. But again, our print's not declining because of the amount of net new business that we're adding to our customer base.
That's what I was gonna say too, is we're just capturing it in another place, right? We're capturing it with services that we're selling them, build workflows and other things like that. I don't know that it equates to the same dollar amount. You know, revenue wise, color printing is going up so significantly that its revenue, I don't think, is actually changing that much for us. So you just kind of rob the Peter to pay Paul at that point.
I'll give a quick plug to my buddy Wes McDonald. I don't know if you guys know Wes, but a few years back he gave me a call because he was working on this calculator. He's like, look, you know, I'm trying to put something out that says pages are declining, or A3's declining, or A4's coming out. And so we worked on this calculator that we put together that says, all right, based on your A3 decline and here's your pages and what you would get, here's your A4, we're adding solutions revenue on top of that, right? Adds this much money back into the deal, right? And so it was averaging out. Yes, your pages that you were getting per month were going away, but your actual revenue and margin, the revenue was staying the same. Your margin was going up because there's more professional services involved on the software. There's more of that reoccurring revenue that doesn't cost the owner that was coming out in pages. So it was a really neat exercise that he and I went through, and I had it to show you guys. I ran out of time to bring it up, but it's a really neat thing to look at when you sit down and watch the workflow of how adding solutions, just like Austin just said, you're getting it from other places. If you don't care that it's not coming from pages, but you care that it's profitable revenue to your company, then you'll see how adding that solutions on top of that deal will really bring that revenue back to your dealership.
Do you have a question?
Yeah,
So paying for scanning has been a topic for over a decade. Paper cut has a spot in there to track and bill back for scanning. The issue that's always been brought up is nobody wants to be the first to charge us.
That's right.
Stigma.
yes, it's a stigma.
So in our market, our competitor charges for scans, and that's ours. I don't like fighting over it, right? Because if you're charging such a low click rate for a scan to begin with, I feel like the money you're bringing in isn't really offsetting anything, other than it's just making it a pain point for the customer, and it looks bad 3 months down the road. The only time we charge for scanning is on ITTs. And we send out paperwork all the time and it says if the output, or if the scan volume is more than 1.5 the output, we're not gonna do the work on the dock feeder, because that just means you're not selling this. Whoever's sitting in the machine is not selling a solution to help manage that workload for that customer. But our big push is like, if we see scanning being an issue, what solution would be a good fix for that, right? I mean, we're trying to drive reps to that. It's a tough conversation to have when a tech goes out and he's putting $100 in a dock feeder every couple of months. And like, hey, spend more.
So whoever figures it out, please share.
Well, just a
There
hair.
is a solution for it. It's actually quite simple. You already charge a click rate for everything that goes out of the device, correct?
It's just another meter.
It's another read. So all you do is you adjust your click rate to include an average of your scans that are going out of that machine, included into the click rate of the prints that are going out. The customer never sees it. You add it in as part of that click rate, but you're adding it for the scanning piece. This cost of the scanner, you're constantly replacing feed rollers, retard tires, things of that nature inside of the scanner. Add it into the output click rate. Why can't you do that?
So if we all just concluded that ourselves independently, that's not collusion, right?
Really not.
Well, and I was-
Well, since I brought it up, I want to get back.
I'll give you some more of that water you had last night.
Well, and because it's just another meter, your DCAs, I mean, they're collecting that too, so the administration of it's not hard, it's the conversation. And so
But I don't have the conversation.
if you're doing it on the output side, agree, but I'm saying if you're doing a separate meter and you're billing for that.
Yeah.
I can tell you, when we see that they're being developed as a feeder, that they're doing my life, we recommend that it gets happening.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask the question. How many of you guys have standalone scanners? Do you guys sell standalone scanners that go along? There's manufacturers in this room
They
that
don't want
offer
to pay
those.
for that because they get it for free on the scanner on the MSP.
Well, that's right, but, and that's one of the things that we're working with the ScanShare team, is putting these applications directly, like you would see on an MFP, just on the standalone scanner. So you can walk up and have that same workflow, so you can educate, again, that's pages that are coming over there, that you can send them through those high-speed scanners and that workflow versus, in a distributed A4 device that may be out. We used to say at Lexmark, the MFPs are very good for scanning file folders, and the standalone scanners are good for file cabinets, right? And so that's really the mentality that we try to get across. Don't try to stand up there with your 4-drawer filing cabinet and start feeding through an ADF of a copier. It's not really what it's
You
designed
guys
for.
know you put dedicated scanners, dedicated workstation, for the workflow conversation.
Yeah. Go ahead, sir. Sorry.
I can tell you, what we kind of did and kind of address getting the cost back by not saying we're going to charge you for scanning. But what we do is, we now have a contract for help desk support or remote support from our team. So hey, I'm gonna opt into our remote support, term contract, and that's X amount per month per device. And, if they opt in, they can call in, and get our remote support, they can do whatever they want, but they don't, they gotta pay for their another part in. And what that's done is it's recouping back that money, because they're doing scanning, I can't scan anymore, because the password changed on that computer, so that's kind of getting that money back. I'm not saying we're charging you for scanning, but we are.
All right. Awesome conversation. I gotta shut it down. I gotta stay on time because I know a bunch of people have flights.